the moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Mike Mjolnir Evans. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Hey, we're here again.
Good to be back. Yeah, good to be back.
Good to be back. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for all your listeners out there and the listeners that we've picked up in the state of Arizona. Hello.
Arizona, thank you.
We see that you're listening. I don't know who you are, but
it's all magic. Nice.
And if you would like to drop us a line, tell us how we're doing. TMI Podcast 2018@gmail.com. TMI Podcast 2018@gmail.com. And we've got a Facebook page and we've got a website.
We do indeed have a website. It is TMIConfessionalspodcast.com. Yes, and Jim keeps asking for the chat room feature, so I'll be on that. Just tell us you're listening.
Just tell us. Let us know.
Do you like what you're hearing? Do you not like what you're hearing?
So talking about like what you hear and like what you see, we've got Umbrella Academy this week. All
Very
10
excited.
episodes we've all viewed, and we're going to give our opinions to you.
I would like to think that we could actually talk about this and not divulge the ending. You think we can get away with that?
So?
Anybody who we are very spoilerific.
Well, the thing is that the show is working towards this particular ending throughout the entire run of the first season. So it's kind of hard to not talk about what happened.
You're correct, but
building towards it.
Yes, yeah. I mean, obviously they're setting it up for a season 2, which I think has already been approved. This thing is it's very impressive to me on every level. So.
Then we're also covering Kick-Ass from 2010 a little bit later on in the show today.
Can you say that on this air?
I think you can, yes.
Kick butt.
And then we've got some news as well, so we might as well just get into that. So
let's get into the news. Let's do the news. Let's follow up with last week's news, which were Oscar predictions.
Yes, we were hopelessly off.
Yeah, listen, if you people are going to actually take what we have to say and wager, not recommended, because all three of us threw our top pick out for best movie, and we all failed miserably.
Yeah, none of us even considered Green Book.
No, nor have seen it. So. Maybe that's why.
But I was glad that Spike Lee did get a writing award, at least, for Black Klansman.
Yes.
Yeah, I hardly recommend that you guys see it and that any of our listeners see it as well. Very entertaining movie.
I'll have to check it out.
What did we think about the Lady Gaga Bradley Cooper duet?
It was it bordered on, it was very voyeuristic. Let's put it that way.
Yes, I was uncomfortable watching it just because Bradley Cooper's girlfriend was watching from the front row. I'm like,
you felt that you were like living vicariously through her going, what the hell are they doing?
And you see, I really don't like this song. You know, I was not a big fan of the movie, which I contend that unless you are a drug-addled rock star, you won't relate to this movie at all. And the song Shallow, a little reminiscent to me of Pretty Woman by Roy Orbison, if you listen to the choruses. And it's the slowed-down version. I'm loath to actually hum it in case we get hit with some kind of copyright infringement.
Yeah, but, we could break into two-part harmony right now.
And just the fact, as an English major, I don't think the word hardcore should be used in anything but porn or punk. So in that context, and not in a song of
you're drawing the line.
Top 40 song. Yeah. I just wince whenever that word came up when I watched the movie and when I saw the Oscars.
It is definitely an earworm of a song, which
it is. Unfortunately, it is.
Yeah.
It gets stuck with you if you like it or not.
Well, kudos to them. They walked away with best song. So
yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Jim, I mentioned that we were going to bring up 90210.
Riverdale, right?
Riverdale. Well, it's all tied in because and listen, we're not TMZ by any means, But poor Luke Perry is hospitalized with a potential stroke.
I heard that. It was a massive stroke.
Yeah, and there's rumors that he was in a coma, and there's rumors that he's not. But he's on Riverdale, and they just announced that they're going to bring back their entire cast for 90210 for a reboot. Probably would have been them as teachers or whatever, and then, brought in the newer generation. Wasn't he like 40 when he was on the show and supposedly still in high school?
Not 40.
Maybe early 30s at the most.
I exaggerate. But he was like the Fonzie, which was
he was, and he was definitely old enough to grow sideburns. I know that.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Well, my uncle had a full beard at 14, so I guess it's possible. Anyways, heartfelt recovery for Luke Perry.
Yes, it's you don't want to see that happen to anybody.
No, not at all. I don't want to bring anybody down, but gentlemen, it's with a heavy heart that I announce the end of a much beloved 8-movie franchise. I'm not sure if you're aware, but a Medea family funeral.
Oh, I was going to say Harry Potter ended a long time ago.
A Medea family funeral will be the last in the Tyler Perry movie.
Oh.
I would like to see it in writing.
Never say never. Never say never.
And I'm going to ask this. I'm going to throw it out to the group right now. Have any of us ever seen one of these Medea movies?
I think I have.
Never.
I think I have. One.
Mike,
Maybe the first one, yeah.
Really? They're not made for me. My mother loves these movies, whatever. But yeah, supposedly this is the end. So.
And also giving condolences, this is in complete seriousness. We did not mention this last week, but rest in peace, Peter Tork of the Monkey.
Yes, Peter Tork. Poor Peter Tork.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a point where we have to just break off from news. There's whole weeks where we have no news, and then there's other weeks where there's like 20 news items that we could just turn this into a Hollywood Reporter.
Yeah.
And then one other news item which just came up on my radar this morning, so I'm going to throw it out there, which is we know that Star Wars Episode 9 is wrapped. We know that there's a large fan backlash to The Last Jedi, and supposedly Disney has brought in George Lucas to help J.J. Abrams fix some of the issues.
Really?
With the classic characters.
I'm smelling a Jar Jar appearance. I think it's going to happen.
The Sith Lord is revealed.
Misa back.
Misa Jedi. Oh no, boy.
Oh, this is not good news.
I don't know, because he did have, we talked about this before, which was the fact that he had that third trilogy set up. And we know that, I can probably say that the three of us right here, the way they treated Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi was not what any of us expected or wanted.
Right.
We do know he's coming back. Now, is it going to be flashbacks that flesh out who Luke Skywalker was and how he became what he is? Is he just going to be a Force ghost? But George Lucas, he's got his fingers involved in this now. And could we see a younger Luke Skywalker a la in the way they filmed for Captain Marvel?
Could we?
I don't know.
We could.
I guess we could. Anything's possible in this day and age, right?
Yeah. That's fairly complicated. You can really only do that for short spurts, right? It's not...
From what I understand, from what I'm seeing in this Captain Marvel is that, he's a major character in this movie. And for him to look like he did back in 1990 is pretty impressive. But anyways, George Lucas, he's back in the game. So whether that's good news or bad news, I don't know.
In The Last Jedi, Luke Skywalker's kind of apathy and hermit status really kind of robs you of whatever thing you've envisioned him going on to after Return of the Jedi.
Correct, yeah. Just too much time had passed. You never saw him in this heyday as a
Jedi, yeah.
You got glimpses of that in Return of the Jedi, but I don't know. That's it.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what they're going to do with it.
We will see. So that's my news.
All right, so now let's get into it. The Umbrella Academy.
Woohoo, yeah. If you have not watched this show, go watch it right now.
Yeah, please. Ignore the detractors, because a lot of people are saying that don't like the show that this is a ripoff of X-Men. And I do not agree. The setup, its very basis, yes, is similar to the setup of X-Men, but the two stories don't really converge to me.
This is what X-Men should have been.
It's a
dysfunctional family.
It. Yeah.
Because if you ever read the comics over an extended period of time, they were dysfunctional to a certain degree. Wolverine and Cyclops did not get along in any way, shape, or form. They both were loving on Jean. I loved it. I just, I read the source material. It is different, but they stuck enough with the basis of what the comic was and got rid of a lot of the more fantastical elements. But, they fleshed out these characters and they are who they are. And
Now, Jeff, since you are familiar with the comic, how much do we have in terms of comic material for the show to mine from this point on? Is it
none?
Is it a limited
None,
series?
to be
What was
honest with you. Because this whole storyline, Vanya's storyline, takes up the first volume, which is the first 6 issues, which is actually called Apocalypse Suite, is the name of the first graphic novel, which encapsulates the first 6 issues or whatever. But they pulled Hazel and Cha-Cha, did not exist in that storyline at all. They were pulled from the second storyline called Dallas. Same thing with the whole Vietnam flashback. We'll get into all this with Klaus. Like, that was pulled from the second series.
Okay.
So where they end this show is anybody's guess where they're going with it, because as far as I know, there's no other comic content that they can pull from.
But Gerard Way does have unpublished graphic novels.
Yes. So Gerard Way,
yeah.
right, has been writing this for a while. If anyone's not familiar, he's the lead singer of My Chemical Romance, which was one of my favorite bands from the last probably 10 years. They are now defunct. So he's got time on his hand. He should be writing, because this was pretty well put together. And then Gabriel Bay was the artist. And I think that's where his style was not cartoony, but they were really stylized versions, especially when you get into Luther. They're a lot more fantastical. They're comic book characters. In the TV show, they're obviously much more grounded in reality. But I don't think, comic book wise, that there's really anything that you can go out there and buy and say, oh, this is where they're going to go with season 2.
And Gerard Way is a producer on the show, so he's if you follow him on Instagram, he is going character by character, deconstructing the differences between, again, in the comic book, they follow the same format, which is the flashbacks. You see them as kids, you see them as adults, and it works really well in this format, in this television show format, because it informs you as you go who and what they were and are as people. But in the TV show, they're much more fleshed out. So he is going character by character, and he's gone on record that he is absolutely loving this version of his characters. So I bet you Robert Kirkman is like looking at all this saying, I've been doing this for years.
Listen, there's more than room for one, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
So let's give our listeners some setup here. What's going on in the Umbrella Academy? At its core, we have a story of 43 children born on the same day in 1989, in October of 1989. Their mothers were not pregnant until the day that these children were born.
Immaculate conception.
And we have an eccentric millionaire, Reginald Hargreeves, who on this day attempts to adopt as many of these children as he can, and he ends up getting 7 of them. So
which is creepy.
Yeah. So, there's one scene where you see he offers the mother money for the child. Like, how much, it reminds me of that Blues Brothers scene. How much for your daughter? But the question comes up is, where are the other 36 kids? Exactly.
That is a good question. Right. Because if these kids were superpowered, then there's got to be a lot more of them out there.
Yeah.
Whether they know they have abilities or not.
Which hopefully our Umbrella Academy will run into at one point or other.
I would think that would be a viable place to go.
We're focusing on the 7 that are adopted by Reginald Hargreeves. And it's kind of like an It scenario. I'm talking about the novel, where we're flashing back between the childhoods of these characters and present day as adults. They're coming back home because Reginald Hargreeves, their estranged father, if you want to call him that, has died. And the kids have long since left the roost, except for Luther. I think he always was there. I don't think he ever left.
Well, he was on the moon for 4 years.
He was on the moon for 4 years, but in his heart, he was still yes, one of the Umbrella.
And you see that in the flashbacks that one by one they become disgruntled, and
so it's sort of like if the X-Men met the Big Chill. That's kind of what the setup.
Basically, to a certain extent, you're right. The Big Chill is a good reference.
So they're coming back home for their father's funeral, and it's the first time in several years that they've all been together. One of them has died, Ben, whose power I was really unsure of. It seemed like he's got monsters or tentacles that live inside him that he unleashes.
You see that once in a flashback and then toward the end of the series. And you don't really know what happened to him.
No, it's never explained.
He only exists as an adult in ghost form because Klaus is a clairvoyant. That's his power. So he speaks to Ben continuously. Ben is always a presence for Klaus only.
It's
So
conscious.
you know that Ben
to
is
be
dead,
honest
but you
with
don't know how it happened.
Or why he's, why he's latching on to Klaus per se.
So we've got Ben, we've got Klaus that we've just mentioned, who is very flamboyant in his own right, I should say, is Klaus. Almost to the point where it's borderline irritating because he's just completely over the top.
Is that my skirt?
Oh, yeah, this. It's very breathy on the bits.
See, I think he was my favorite character.
Really?
And I think he was, outside of Vanya, had the biggest leap in character development by the end of the 10 episodes.
Especially after his tenure in Vietnam, which we'll get into a little bit later.
Right.
But we've got Luther, who is kind of like the Hulk thing member of the team, thanks to a human head and a monkey's body.
And that was only because he wasn't born like that.
He wasn't born like that. There was some sort of an accident that I kind of missed what exactly happened.
It was
to him.
not really, the source material, plays that out a little bit more, but it was some kind of a mist, or he was exposed to something that he should not have been exposed to. And in order to save his life, his father, Reginald, transplants an ape torso onto him.
In the book, as you're saying, his head is transplanted onto an ape torso. In the show, they're saying it was a serum that he was injected with.
Right.
So it's not as fantastical in the series as
Right.
transplanting his head. But regardless, the end result is the same, where he's got a huge hulking gorilla torso, complete with monkey hair. And, he always is wearing long sleeves. He doesn't want anybody to see.
Yeah, he's really kind of hiding it. It's actually a bit of a reveal when they all come back. And at one
But you
point,
think he could just, get some razors or clippers, a good strong clippers. and
once
take
you shave that stuff,
down.
it's coming back even harder. So it's
They use a little nair on it.
there you go. You just swim in it.
But it is very bizarre when you do see him with the shirt off, because not only is he hulking, but it does look like a gorilla's body, like with a human head. So he does look bizarre. Then we have Diego, who is the closest the team has to their own hitman. He's an expert knife thrower. And anything that he throws, he can kind of control where it goes. I don't think he's got anything else going on.
I think in the comics he did, but it doesn't really translate here in the.
He can hold his breath.
There you go.
That's what it is, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
And then we've got Allison, who is like a Beyonce type star when the show begins. And she has the power of suggestion. It's kind of like the Jedi mind trick. It's almost exactly like the Jedi mind trick, actually.
Yeah, she doesn't need to wave her hand, though. All she has to do
all
is
she says, I heard a rumor, and then whatever
she says
she gets whoever she's talking to do.
Yeah.
So could that be why she's such a megastar? She's talked her way into
Yes.
You absolutely got that impression. And what we're not talking about is the fact that you really learn their names secondhand, because the way that they're set up, they're all given numbers. This is how their father addresses them, as number 1, number 2, number 3.
There's actually one that doesn't have a name, that is just known as number 5. Throughout the entire
who has been missing for years, since a kid. He's been missing since he was a kid.
Now, his power is that he can go through time. He can flash forward and flash back.
And he got a little too fancy pants with it, and his father told him to stop, and he jumped and never came back.
And that is the setup. That is the big reveal when number 5 comes back, which informs the entire show, is that number 5 is saying that there is an apocalypse that's about to transpire, and that the Umbrella Academy has to stop it by all means. And that is pretty much the plot through of the first season. But before we go on to that, let's not forget our most important member, and her name is Vanya, number 7. Now, without giving too much away, Vanya is the powerless member of the Umbrella Academy, and so she's never been allowed to go on any missions. She's always stayed home. Her father's always kept her indoors while the others go off on their adventures, and she's a little bit bitter about it, I think.
You think?
Resentment towards her.
You think?
Some unspoken feelings and towards her father and towards her siblings. And that gets worked out throughout the first season as well.
In the comic books, they do have code names, and you don't really pick up on that in this series, but there's a couple flashbacks, because they're very well known. He sends them out on these missions, and they're all in schoolboy outfits. What do you want to call it? The charter school uniforms, but they wear masks, and they have a following. So if you see a couple scenes where there's people in the crowds and they all got little signs, So Luther was known as Space Boy. Diego was called Kraken, which doesn't make any sense to me because you would think that Ben, with these tentacles coming out of his, would be called the Kraken. Now, Ben is known as the Horror. And then you have Klaus as Seance, and Allison is the Rumor. And as you said, number 5 is number 5. You never get a code name. You never get a real name. He is just straight up number 5.
When number 5 comes back from the future, he does come back during the funeral and he meets his adult siblings, but he's still a kid. He's still in the same form that he was in when he jumped and got stuck. But he was in the future.
I think he was like 56 years old.
Right. So he's 50, comes back. He's like 50 some odd years old.
So he's like a 50 some year old man trapped in like a 13-year-old body.
And I totally bought it.
We so have to talk about this kid again. I mean, unbelievable. He plays it like never smirks, never breaks. Like he's just a hard ass. He's on a mission. And it doesn't matter the fact that he's a kid. He plays it
right.
Brilliant.
I never looked at him as a kid, a kid actor playing an old man. I saw him as an old man or an older man.
Well done. His name is Aidan Gallagher. This kid kills it. Yeah, he is the heart and soul of this show.
He is. Yeah, he's the driving force of the plot as well.
Yeah, and he's just fun to watch. He's a fun character to watch because you never really know. Like you would see over the course of the flashbacks or whatever that he. Especially when he's in the future, like his only friend is this store mannequin named Dolores that he drags around wherever he goes.
Which you don't find out until a few episodes in. So you think he has a girlfriend or wife.
He does refer to her numerous times, Dolores or whatever. And then you find out that it's a store mannequin missing an arm. It's only a torso with one arm. And yet he has numerous conversations with her and arguments even. And we did talk about Pogo.
Yeah, Pogo is not really explained. He is the chimpanzee butler of the Umbrella Academy and Reginald Hargreeves. And Pogo is a wizened, I'm not sure when he came about or what his origin story is, but Pogo is like the gift that keeps on giving. It's like the Jelly of the Month Club from Christmas Vacation that Clark gets.
Yeah. Clark, it's the gift that keeps on giving the whole year.
That it is, Edward. That it is indeed.
He continuously is pouring out these secrets one after the other in every single episode.
He's like parsing them out like little
and
tic-tac.
He's just making every sibling pissed off because for some reason you've got Luther who was stuck on the moon, and it turns out that Hargreaves sent him there for no particular reason. He never read any of the reports that he sent back from the moon.
Yeah.
And Pogo knows this. And so Luther is upset with him. Vanya is upset with him at some point because of the father's secrets. It's like he pisses off everybody in the family at one point.
So lesson to be learned: don't get a talking chimpanzee.
No,
but he is so likable.
He is likable, and he's absolutely fully realized. I mean, you never question that this character is not some CG cartoon.
And just the way that they animate him, just the weight of all these secrets, you can tell is on his shoulders.
Yeah.
You know, he just looks more sorrowful every time he has to impart one of these secrets that he knows is just going to tear somebody else apart.
That none of your siblings bear any responsibility for what happened to you as a child.
Yeah, he's a great character. And then Grace, who's the mom, and you realize that she's a robot.
One of the more likable characters, I have to say.
Very aloof, very kind of like even after Hargreaves' death, she doesn't quite process it. And you realize that, she's this robot.
Yeah, and you don't really know if these things are normal things in this reality that you're watching of the show. Like, is a talking chimpanzee normal? Or is this really unique to the Umbrella Academy? Is a mom robot normal? Or is this unique to the Umbrella Academy?
There's a point where they made mention that Hargreaves never let her off the property. So I would think that whatever's going on here isn't necessary. Because if you look, like it's hard to tell what era this actually is taking place in. Nobody has cell phones.
They all talk on payphones, right?
Yeah, payphones or landlines. Everything like that one music sequence, which we can get into the music in this, which just elevates this show 2 notches above what it should be. The soundtrack is phenomenal, but everything's old school record players. You don't see any kind of technology, but then you see robots and talking chimps. So it's a weird, and he lives on the moon.
But we can math our way into this because the births all took place in 1989, right?
You're right. Okay, all right.
Right. So call them as kids. How old do you think that they were?
I'm going to say they easily had to be early teens when they were. Well, maybe not. They were young.
So I'm thinking this has got to be a different reality.
A timeline.
From ours, yeah.
Okay.
That we haven't really touched on. We mentioned them, but Cha-Cha and Hazel, another two of my favorite characters from the show.
They are very well fleshed out compared to the comic.
The guy that plays Hazel also has one of those very soothing voices that should be a GPS. I would love to have Hazel on my GPS.
You're not even sure if they're for good or for evil. They certainly think they're for good. They have an idea that they're keeping the timeline pure by going to other timelines. If there's a timeline where the Hindenburg didn't blow up, they make sure it blew up.
Yeah, and Cha-Cha's played by Mary J. Blige. Yeah. There's so much to like about this.
The time jumping of number 5 becomes a central crux of the show because we find out that there's something called a commission that's also very interested in timelines.
Like management.
Timeline management.
Yeah, basically. They want to, and that's where Hazel and Cha-Cha are like enforcers in this group, wants to maintain that this apocalypse happens. Really explained why they needed it to play out the way that number 5 saw it when he jumped into the future. So
this commission employs hitwomen like Cha-Cha and Hazel, and you assume that there's more out there to kind of keep tabs on the timelines to make sure everything happens the way it should. So you get the impression that it's more than just number 5 that has the ability to do this, for the commission to even exist.
Right.
Because you wouldn't have to worry about the timeline unless people were going back and forth in time. And so in the beginning of the show, you have Cha-Cha and Hazel going after number 5 because they've been tasked with killing him to preserve the timeline so he doesn't stop the apocalypse. But then as the show transpires, it kind of becomes a whodunit, like who really is the cause of the apocalypse and who isn't.
And that is kind of like the driving force.
Yeah. And number 5 has this glass eye, which is kind of a MacGuffin.
Yeah, because he found it in Luther's hand, because when he goes into the future, everyone's dead. Yeah. The academy's destroyed and they're all dead. And that's the only clue he has, is this glass eye in Luther's hand that informs him, I need to track this down. And it took him 56 years of calculations in order to, there are scenes where he's an old man in the future, before he jumps back and then he's back into the kid body. But and he has 8 days. It's all going to transpire in 8 days. And he seemed a little lackadaisical about that. I think that 8 days seems a little short, but we got 6 episodes left. So let's kill a couple story points along the way.
Yeah, and nobody believes him or takes him seriously until the final couple of episodes when this really becomes a reality for everyone that this is about to happen. So Hazel and Cha-Cha, in order to jump time frames themselves, they just can't make it happen like number 5 does. They have a suitcase that they're carrying with them with some kind of a time travel device in it that helps them go back and forth between timelines. And at some point, and we brought this up before, Klaus gets his hands on it because Hazel and Cha-Cha kidnap Klaus thinking that he's number 5. Klaus escapes, taking the briefcase with him, and he ends up flashing back to Vietnam. For how long did he say he was there?
About a year.
But yet when he comes back, he's got the same goatee and the same, eyeliner that he had on.
Some things never go out of style.
Yeah. And then he falls in love with another soldier out there. So he has an epiphany while he's out there. So his character really changes from one episode.
Yeah, because he was like a straight up druggie, anything for the next fix. That's why his powers weren't working, or why he was unable to, because there was a little bit of a storyline on the side where he kept trying to conjure up their dad. The guy's dead now, so I should be able to talk to him.
Yeah.
But if you're constantly drugged out of your mind, he can't control it. And yet somehow Ben is always there by his side, and Ben's always able to kind of see it. But yeah, it's like I said, this is the one character outside of Vanya that has the biggest, I think, story arc as far as character development, that he realizes the fruitlessness of his existence up to that point in Vietnam really does kind of inform him of what he needs to do, which is grow up.
And I did like him better as the show went on, when he got a little bit more serious. As Jeff said, we really don't want to give too much away because we're hoping that if you're listening to this and haven't watched it, you will. And it's just going to increase your enjoyment if you don't know what's ahead of you completely. So we don't want to give away too many secrets. So plot-wise, we probably should back off a little. But guys, I just wanted to go through and get your take on who your favorite characters were, be it members of the Umbrella Academy itself or some of the peripheral characters.
I liked Allison. I like the notion that she was, kind of, I have a rumor or I heard a rumor, and then she can manipulate people, and she was using it in this sort of nefarious way on her daughter, and you could see how that this would get out of hand.
I mean, and that was the catalyst why she was separated from her child. There was a little bit of a storyline going on there, which was the dad and Claire, the daughter, were on the other end of the world. They were over in California somewhere because he caught her using her powers on the daughter. It's kind of like in a moment where your kid gets out of hand and you backslap them just out of frustration. The kid kept begging, I want to know the story, Mom. I want to know the story. And she's like,
the equivalent of slipping Xanax into their milk, bed is her using her powers on her, right?
But you're right. Go back to what you said before, Mike, which was you could easily see how she used that power to get where she was, which was a famous actress.
She's flashbacking.
Yeah.
And you hear her saying, like, going up for a role, and she does just that. I heard a rumor that I would be really good for the part.
Yeah, outside of Vanya, she's, in my mind, kind of the most powerful of the group.
Yeah, like I said before, I really loved Cha-Cha and Hazel. There's a scene, I think, in the third episode where they infiltrate the mansion, and there's just this complete balls-out action sequence. They go in guns blazing into the mansion, and they take on the Umbrella Academy on their own turf. And it's like a great 5-minute scene that's just nonstop.
It is well choreographed. It is well done. It is a very bloody show, by the way. It's very violent.
And I think in terms of the Umbrella Academy itself, I liked Luther the best.
He's very Captain America in his morals, that he was number one, and he was the guy that stuck around, like you said. All the other ones, like, as I grew up, screw this guy's a nut job. Why are we, he's abusing us as children, putting experiments on us and sending us out to fight bad guys. So I did like Luther as well.
Yeah, his stoicness. And Luther and Allison have this incestuous, but not really, since they're not blood relatives, relationship going on.
And I like that. That was I did like that.
And there's one very memorable scene where they dance to the song "Dancing in the Moonlight." When you see Luther, it's like a fantasy scene. All of a sudden, it's La La Land. And Luther's no longer has the monkey body; he's got a regular body. It's like a fantasy dance scene.
Yeah, and that's where I get it before with these musical montages. These kind of like chase scenes with music attached to them are very. I mean, I hate to say like Scooby-Doo, but that's what I thought of. I said before, I really like Klaus. I thought he was a fun character to watch. And like you said, as he becomes a little more in tune with who and what he is, he becomes more likable. And his powers grow. And you see by the end that he's able to do stuff that he wasn't unable to. Well, I don't even think we saw it when he was a kid.
So, I think then, from what I'm hearing, that we loved this show.
Yes. I mean, again, it's not, over 10 episodes, most of the complaints I think that we've had with some of the Netflix shows is they could be 8 episodes, cut 2 out. But I felt that this was well paced. Even when you completely diverged and sent Klaus into Vietnam, it still informed you of who and what he was as a character, not necessarily driving the plot. We didn't even really talk too much about Vanya because she is just a slow burn. This character, Ellen Page, I think that's the biggest attraction I've heard about this show. People who didn't like it didn't like her character, didn't like her acting in it. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah.
The only issue I had with her, and it wasn't even with her, but the overuse of slow motion, the Reservoir Dogs style slow motion that they employ when it comes to Vanya's character, I just thought was unnecessary.
Yeah. In the comics, I mean, I hate to say it, her storyline evolves within like the 3rd issue. Like you said, it's, her issues go back, and it's a slow burn. This guy, Leonard Peabody, who befriends her, that whole storyline was a little too Incrediboy for me.
Oh, you mean Harold Jenkins? Oh, I mean Leonard Peabody.
Or whatever you want to get. In the comics, he was known as the conductor.
Right.
So there's, I will say the one thing I thought was brilliant about this. So what's the one thing about every Netflix show that you can do?
Da-dum.
Da-dum. Do you do that when you actually watch the show before it comes on? You go, da-dum.
I do. I'm tempted to. I don't think I've actually ever said it out loud, but
I think I have done it out loud.
But now they have the new rainbow logo.
Yeah, the little rainbow logo. Yeah, so I'm going across Bifrost. But every Netflix, when you're binging this stuff, one episode after another, because that's the way they want you to watch this, you can immediately skip intro. You can't do that with this show. because they've integrated the title sequence directly into the storyline. So whether or not the logo shows up on an umbrella or it shows up on the side of a wall,
yes.
So you don't get that. And I don't know if that was purposeful, as the producers going, all right, we're not going to give audiences the option of skipping an intro. You need to see who made this show.
And the reason that they do that is because they know that their intros are just long and overwrought. You look at any of the Marvel shows; it's got like a 5-minute intro.
Oh yeah. Oh, Daredevil's the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah, that drawn out violin. Yeah. But so I thought, I mean, it's a throwaway thing, but I thought it was genius. And I'm like, all right, someone's actually thinking about the person sitting there binging. So
how many buckets would we offer Umbrella Academy?
I got to go at least 4.5. Easily.
I think I'm with Jeff. 4.5. Just unbelievably well done. And I was rationing out the episodes because I was enjoying it so much.
I know that's what you were saying before, is that I don't want it to end.
Yeah, no, I didn't either. I'd give it 4, and that's not downplaying it whatsoever. 4 is a very, very good for me. Solid show.
Yeah, and that's hopefully they'll pull it together quicker than Lost in Space, by the way.
Yeah.
We still wait for. If you are on the fence about whether or not you want to watch this show, if you're not sold by the second episode, then walk away. But this is very well done.
It's like one of those shows like Stranger Things that you don't really have any expectation about, and then you're like, wow, that was wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I remember as soon as I saw that Netflix was bringing this out, I remember reading the comic, and I remember liking it, but I couldn't tell you anything specific about the characters or whatever. But in bringing the book back out and reading it, or at least going through it simultaneously while I was watching the show, I thought they did a fantastic job of capturing the essence and the flavor of what was established.
And now, Mike, you said that you were looking into this to see if you can get some graphic novels to catch yourself up, and everything was sold out. You couldn't find it.
Yeah, everything's sold out. It's sold out on Amazon, sold out at the comic book store. It's just sold out everywhere. If you want to go to eBay and pay, $30 for, what's the first one? Apocalypse. You can do that.
Really?
So, all right, should we go to the concession stand, gentlemen?
Let's go, because I'm hungry.
It's refreshment time, folks.
Taste that beats the others cold. Pepsi pours it on. Taste that beats the others cold. Pepsi pours it on.
Yum, yum. It's a meal in itself. Our all-meat super dog. Enjoy one now.
Okay, we're back, and we chose to match up Umbrella Academy this week with Kick-Ass from 2010. Now, the only thing I was thinking, I was just envisioning the masks of the Umbrella Academy when they were kids and Hit Girl. It was just like there was that visual correlation.
That little correlation, yeah.
But then as you're watching Kick-Ass, you realize, because they're both very violent upfront shows, that there is like a connection. There is, they've got a lot of similarities, I think.
Yeah.
Not really thematically or plot-wise, but just as, an overall feeling, the show and Kick-Ass, the movie. And comic origins as well.
There you go. And I forgot, Mike, I guess I didn't realize that Marvel published this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they don't publish it now. It's someone else publishes it. So
right, and I was watching some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, and Mark Miller, who wrote this, and he employed John Romita Jr., who's a very well-known comic book guy. And he's done X-Men, he's done Spider-Man or whatever. And this was a big departure as far as style, because it's very bloody, it's very brutal. But yeah, the comic was well received back in the day, and I think it was pretty early on that they decided to turn this into a movie.
Yeah, and if this came out now, I don't think people would, comic-wise or movie-wise, people are just used to it at the time. But at the time, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, it was a little jarring for general audience.
There was a lot of controversy surrounding it, and especially, a lot of it has to do with Hit Girl.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Chloe
Grace
Moretz.
Yeah.
Who was probably all of 11 or 12 at the time. And she's just a potty-mouthed little
and she's
monster.
swearing it up like a sailor. Like to great comic effect, mind you. But still, it is a 11, 12-year-old girl saying these things. And it's funny because if you read anything online from her or now or at the time, she's saying she doesn't understand the controversy. I don't talk like this in reality. It's just,
Right.
it was the hyper reality of the movie. If I ever said these words, I'd be grounded for 20 years,
Right. Yeah.
my house.
Yeah. But you're getting a paycheck, so loud and proud, baby.
Yep.
Loud it out.
She was even at home. She was embarrassed to say the title "Kick-Ass." She would have to call it "Kick It Up."
Yeah. Or when she was doing press, she would actually just refer to it as the movie.
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny. So I'm asking, so I know, Jim, that you watched the closed caption version of most of this stuff.
Yes.
Did they spell it straight out, or did your closed caption even blush?
No, it's spelled
asterisk.
Out.
Yeah, because it's a little jarring especially when you first meet her, but yeah.
So what's funny is that they wrote the comic and the screenplay kind of concurrently at the same time. So it's not like the comic came out first and then the movie. They sold the rights to the story before the comic was even published.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And so the comic plot line and the movie plot line end in the same spot, but they take two wildly different paths to get there.
Oh.
So Mike, if you read this, or Jeff, if you did, you could probably speak to it more than I do, because I don't know specifically what they changed. But first of all, it's shocked me that it does not have the Marvel logo up front, even though Kick-Ass is now not published by Marvel. At the time, I think it was.
Right.
But it's not advertised as such.
No, it's not. It doesn't take place in the Marvel universe.
Neither does Big Hero 6, but that has the Marvel logo on up front.
Well, that was
not mistaken.
And it has Stan Lee in it.
And
he did have a cameo. Matthew Vaughn directed this, and he's got a pretty good pedigree because X-Men First Class, which is one of the better ones. Kingsman, Stardust, which was brought up in one of our Facebook posts.
I'd like to do that one of these days.
And Layer Cake, which brought us Daniel Craig.
Yeah, it's an awesome movie.
And if I'm not mistaken, he's also involved in those early Guy Ritchie movies, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Yep, correct.
Smash.
Yeah. And Brad Pitt produced this.
Yeah.
One of the producers. So really kind of a bizarre.
And again, probably, they know each other from Snatch and working together.
Yeah.
Because Brad Pitt famously, I love Brad Pitt in that movie in Snatch. Yeah. The unintelligible.
The mumbling.
Gypsy boxer. Yeah.
Right.
So let's talk about the plot of this movie. If you don't know it already, Kick-Ass is the story of three teenage comic geeks. One of them played by Aaron Johnson, now known as Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Yeah, somewhere along the line he hyphenated, right?
Yeah, somewhere along. I don't know if he got married or he took his wife's name or what happened there.
Right.
He's part of a gang of three, and one of them one of the other kids played by Evan Peters, which is
crazy.
From American Horror Story, and Quicksilver.
They're both Quicksilver. They both played Quicksilver in the Marvel Universe. Yeah. So, pretty funny.
Nicolas Cage as Big Daddy. We've got Chloe Grace Moretz, as we said before, as Hit Girl. So the story here is that we've got three teenage boys, and one of them, Aaron Johnson, he is Dave Lazowski, which hits very close to home to our own Dave Warhowski, who was an ex-member of the show. So both of them hit very close to home with Mike Wazowski from Monsters Incorporated.
Mike Wazowski!
Yeah. Sure, step aside, kid. We're not.
Yeah!
All these people in the world are into comic books. Why hasn't anybody actually tried this in real life?
Which is a brilliant observation when you think about it.
Yes. And anything the costume, everything is readily available online for him to buy, as it would be for any of us, right? So he buys this costume. So he goes out after he buys this costume to try and stop crime. And so the first thing he does
How does that go?
These two guys that have already bullied him and his friends. He sees them trying to break into a car. He confronts them in costume, and he immediately gets stabbed and has to go to the hospital. And not only does he get stabbed, he gets hit by a hit-and-run driver as he stumbles out into the street.
Yeah.
From reality, we get into a little bit of the fantastical here, because once he goes to the hospital and they fix him up, they have to lace his bones with some sort of metal to hold him together after his car accident.
He's now Wolverine.
So he's now Wolverine. He's impervious to pain.
And that's a great scene where he finally goes back to school, and his friends are like poking him. You feel that? You feel that? And then they stab with a fork, and then he hits him with the back of the tray.
Yeah.
And he's just like, you feel that? Like any friend that you had at 16 years old would be the idiot shooting you going, you feel that?
So after this, he goes back out onto the streets. As he's trying to save a cat that's stuck up on a fire escape, he happens to foil like a beatdown. You don't know what's actually going on, but you have 3 guys chasing another, and they catch him and they start beating him up. So Kick-Ass intercedes, and because of his imperviousness to pain, he manages to take a lot of hits, a lot of kicks, but he keeps getting up and fighting these 3 guys off. This happens outside of a donut shop. A lot of kids are filming this, so he becomes a viral sensation. So that's the setup of the movie. And in the background, we have a gangster. His name is Frank D'Amico, played by Mark Strong, played very scarily by Mark Strong, I might add. His son happens to be Chris D'Amico, who later becomes Red Mist in the movie.
McLovin.
Christopher Mintz-Plasse. We have a lot of 3-name actors.
I know, there's some, yeah.
Once Kick-Ass becomes viral, he draws the attention of Big Daddy and Hit Girl, who are in their own right superheroes, but a little off the grid, we should say. Very reminiscent, I would think, but just by listening to him speak, of Adam West's Batman. That's
exactly what he was going for. As a matter of fact, when the dailies were coming in, the producers were like, we have to loop this. We can't use this. And Vaughn was like, dude, we're going balls in on this. And this is where it's going to work. Like numerous times I was watching the DVD commentary, and there's numerous times where he said, we're so committed to the stupidity at some level that we just have to completely commit. This is how he's playing it. And he goes, I had to fight for it.
I didn't say anything to anyone, I swear.
Good move. Ass. Kick. Let's keep it that way. See, we like you, but we don't trust you.
But yeah, it is straight up Adam West Batman.
And the scene where Kick-Ass first encounters Hit Girl is just probably my favorite scene in the movie. Kick-Ass goes to Razul, the drug dealer's apartment, to tell him to back off from Katie, who is the girl that Dave, Kick-Ass in reality, is interested in. Now, this is a little bit confusing to me. I do know that Katie works in like a drug rehab center, right?
Right.
And that this is probably how she met Razul. But to think that these 2 characters, the complete opposites of each other, are in any way connected is just a giant leap of logic. But anyway, he goes to Razul's apartment to get him to back off of Katie. And he is about to get the beatdown of his life, perhaps.
Right?
I'm Kick-Ass. Look me up. This is me giving you a message. Leave Katie alone.
Or what?
Or come back and break your legs.
He is saved by Hit Girl. Just the scene is a hyperkinetic, super violent scene where she's just impaling characters, cutting legs off.
It's all done under the Banana Splits Tra-La-La theme song. Which just elevates it. Again, this is another show where the music really takes some of these sequences and just takes it to the next level. And that being the introduction of Hit Girl.
That's what I think the movie should have been called. Hit Girl, because as soon as she appears, she just steals every scene that she's in.
Correct. Now, Mike, you last week when we talked about this, you said you had not seen this movie, but you did know who Hit Girl was.
Yeah, because of the comics. And it's very similar to what the comics are. But for Kick-Ass, in the current comic, it's a female Afghan war veteran is Kick-Ass.
Really? And she's part of the Marvel Universe?
No, because
that's a different. Oh, you said it was a different publisher.
Yeah, I think it's Image.
But what was your take on this? Because this was the first time you had seen it, and
I loved it.
Yeah,
I adored it. So it was great, and you're absolutely right. Hit Girl steals all the scenes, and you know what? And I really like Nicolas Cage because he's a big comic guy, and to be able to get into a comic film, it was probably like
especially after that Superman movie fell apart with Tim Burton. Yeah. I'm sure he was happy to. From what I understand, he did as much physical stunt work as he possibly. Like they said that he just reveled in putting that costume on. And again, they tried to. Jim, you kind of poo-pooed the fact that any one of us could go online and buy a costume, but I guess they tried to keep it as he's wearing work boots. They tried to keep it as grounded in reality as possible, that this is stuff you could really go on eBay or go on Amazon and buy. And all of Big Daddy's costume, it's a French riot gear costume is all it is, with a modified mask. So it's stuff that you can get your hands on. Now, I mean, some of the weaponry he had was just out of control.
Yeah, that's when you get to the end of the movie.
But that's such a great reveal. That is such a great reveal. Yeah, it is just a fun movie. It is bloody. It is, your main character. You don't know if he's actually going to live or die. But it is great.
I didn't know that there was a sequel. Has anyone seen that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Does it hold up?
No.
Yeah, Jim Carrey's in it.
It just kind of sullies the impact of the first movie, I think.
Correct. I
think
agree.
You're best watching the first one and just leaving that lie.
Yeah. Or just go and pick up the comics afterwards. I don't know how much. I think they did 1, 2, and 3 in the comic series, but how much of the second movie picked up from the second series, I don't know.
And Mike, as you were saying, Nicolas Cage is, we know he's such a, comic fan himself. And to see that him talking in that Adam West cadence, that it was his choice to do that.
Yeah.
And I can imagine the fun that he's having in this role, dressed up like that.
And he looks like he's having fun. I mentioned the soundtrack before, but there's different like musical montages. When he first comes home and his Amazon box is there with his costume and he puts it on, that's straight up Superman riff. Like they just stole the Superman theme, right?
I don't even. It doesn't resonate with me.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I'm not remembering that musical.
Okay, all right. But there's other like when they're at the end of the movie where they're locking and loading and they're gonna go final confrontation. Yeah. I mean that's like 80s Rambo synthesizer music going on there. Right. They got the little dance sequence when they're in the Mistmobile kind of a thing.
Oh yes, when they're doing
that's more like a current movie
with that song Crazy. But they don't really unleash the kick-ass theme until the very end.
No, until the end. But there's little snippets of it as he builds up and becomes his character.
Which is a great theme, in its own right.
Yeah. And if you watch the DVD, when you get to the home screen, it just plays it over and over again. Within 10 minutes, you turn this off. But there's a little homage to Miami Vice in the air tonight too. When him and Red Mist are going to meet Big Daddy and Hit Girl, and they're in the car. And that's a straight up Miami Vice homage.
And let's talk about Red Mist a little. And just the scene where he's showing Kick-Ass when they're driving in the Mistmobile.
Sat nav, got my iPhone so I can check the websites for emergencies when I'm driving around. A little bit of mood lighting right there. Rear view camera, no big deal. I'll check this unit for me. I love this. The Mist.
Yeah.
And you can tell his character by the end because he's sorry that he's double-crossed Kick-Ass, even though he really wants his father's approval and get into his business. But he kind of is getting sold on the superhero lifestyle, I think. So
until he sees his dad get blown out the window.
In either direction. He could have ended up a good guy or a bad guy.
So speaking of that Mistmobile, Matthew Vaughn put it in his contract that he got that as part of his payment. So he owns that car with all the tricked out stuff that actually does what it does in the movie.
That's funny.
And for all intents and purposes, it does look like they're driving through Times Square during that scene, but that was shot in Canada. I think Toronto.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff was...
Ice was Umbrella Academy.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of parallels between these two.
The one interesting thing I'll say, which is Vaughn mentioned that whenever he writes a script, he always watches Star Wars. He always goes back to Star Wars as his center point so like Dave is his Luke Skywalker, and he even like when Big Daddy she takes his mask off. That's like straight up Anakin coming back from Darth Vader. I thought that was interesting that he really takes Star Wars as a template and applies it to all of his characters throughout his stuff that he writes.
And now let's get into the operatic violence of the ending. Hit Girl and Kick-Ass, they launch an assault on Frank D'Amico's apartment. And I don't know how many guys he has working for him, but he's 20 guys die throughout the movie, yet still he's got his final 20 guys in the apartment with him.
Get out there. Me? Get out there. I'm not getting out there.
And Hit Girl takes them out. First, she dresses like one of the Umbrella Academy, in the lobby of the place. She takes out the doorman. Now, I'm wondering, does anybody else live in this apartment building? Do they hear what's going on above them? I think Frank D'Amico would have taken out any complainers long ago, but before this happened. So Hit Girl holds her own against all these guys until she burrows into the kitchen island, and they're trying to weed her out. Finally, Kick-Ass shows up with the jetpack that Big Daddy has ordered earlier in the movie, using the $300,000 that he's stolen from Razul.
Right.
And he's like, there's this great little exchange between him and Hit Girl when they're looking at this jetpack. You don't know what it is until the end, what they're looking at.
Oh, yeah, it's like a little...
and he's like, I can't think of a better way to spend $300,000.
Right.
Yep. Add to cart, please, honey. Add to cart.
cart. Yep.
So he shows up with the Gatling guns. We've got the final confrontation between Hit Girl and Frank D'Amico and Kick-Ass and Red Mist. And this is another controversial scene because Frank D'Amico beats the hell out of Hit Girl for about 5 minutes before Kick-Ass saves the day.
He had some issues filming that scene, too, because he had no problems kicking the other guy in the head earlier in the movie. Like, literally, I mean, not even faking. He kicked the guy in the head. Ooh. Now, all of a sudden, the director's like, all right, now beat the crap out of this little girl. And he's like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you need to.
Probably one of the best movie deaths is Frank D'Amico. Yeah. It's blown out the window and then explodes midair above the street.
Yeah. A little bit of a True Lies feel to it. When the guy gets latched onto the missile and he shot through the building and hits the helicopter on the other end. But still, you can't take anything away from it. It's a great visual. Visually, it's
an awesome end.
Yeah.
And then that theme song kicks in.
Like you said, by then his full-on theme song is he's now a fully realized superhero.
I love the little coda at the end where you see Hit Girl going to school and she's confronting the two bullies.
Oh, yeah. Immediately cracking her knuckles. And then the setup for Red Mist being the Joker.
Yeah, and it really is too bad that they didn't take this higher with the sequel, I
don't know if they were building up that maybe by the third one, if they did a third one, that he would be, because you saw that he actually had changed his outfit and he now was picking up those orange colors, which were his father's. Like you saw there was orange pillows and all of his workout gear when he was Tai Chi or whatever. Everything was orange.
So this is very, I really want to give this 5 buckets, but there's something in me that's pulling back just a little bit. It's not like an all-time classic, but it's so close.
Yeah.
So I would give this probably 4 3/4. It's just below 5 buckets for me.
4 3/4.
What are we thinking?
It's below Umbrella Academy for me, so I'm going to go 4.
I may say it's on par. I'll go 4.5. Did anybody catch the Claudia Schiffer little cameo?
On the billboard, right?
Yeah, she's married to Matthew Vaughn. He was actually adamant about not doing it. He goes, I hate fake billboards. He goes, yeah, I guess the production guys snuck it in there. They thought it was funny.
Did we mention that we saw a Walking Dead character here? Did either of you guys catch that?
A Walking Dead character?
Gregory, not a character, actor.
That's
Gregory from Hilltop.
Yeah, I couldn't put a name to that guy.
He was the cop that was on D'Amico's payroll.
Yes, and supposedly he had a much larger role that they ended up just cutting a lot of his scenes just for time-wise. You're right. I recognized him, but couldn't put the two and two
Looking much
together.
younger, I should say, as well.
Yeah, well, fighting the zombie apocalypse takes it out of you. This was the most illegally downloaded movie of 2010, right behind Avatar, by the way.
I'm not surprised.
So the box office probably would have been a hell of a lot bigger if people actually paid money to go see it.
And Aaron Johnson as Kick-Ass, great job. Although he evokes Harry Potter so strongly in this movie, especially when he has the glasses on.
The glasses.
So what do we have for a confessionals today?
Confessionals.
What was the
settle upon?
The confessional was name a comic series that you feel is worthy of a movie or TV show that has not been made yet. So I want to get Mike
to go first on this one.
I want Mike to go up first. He's my comic guy.
The one that I thought of first was Moon Knight, and that's just been out in the zeitgeist forever. Kind of, like
the White Batman.
Yeah, the White Batman, kind of maybe good for Netflix, but not good for Netflix anymore. But what I settled on was, probably you guys are not even aware of this, is a comic book called Lazarus. It's written by Greg Rucka and Michael Lark, and it's sort of this dystopian future where 16 families rule the world, and each of them have a Lazarus, which is kind of their own family hero to sort of battle things out. And it's just a fantastic book. And I actually think this might be has sold its rights. I know that, and I don't know if it's under production or not, but that's the one that I most would like to see.
And who publishes?
This is Image Comics.
Image. Now, you see this as like a TV show?
Yeah, because you would definitely have multiple episodes, yeah.
So that sounds very kind of Game of Thrones-ish as far as families vying for power.
It is, and it's actually the author Greg Rucka will not watch the Game of Thrones because it's been gotten some comparisons to it, so that he can't be called out for ripping it off.
Right. Interesting. All right, Lazarus.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. I will go. This is, I'm going to go a little obscure as well. This was a book that was put out by Wildstorm. It only ran, I think, like 27 issues from 99 to like 2009. It was written by Warren Ellis and illustrated by John Cassidy. And it's called Planetary.
I've heard of this, but I've never read it.
So I will say that and unfortunately, I've now sold my entire comic collection. But looking this up and researching, I'm like, I need to reread these books, and now I don't have them to read. So Planetary was like the secret organization, and I don't remember if there was multiple teams, but the books centered on this one team that had like 3 characters in it. And what they were doing is they would jump around in time. They had the ability to time travel, and they were decoding the 20th century, going back, and a lot of it had to do. There was a lot of pop culture references, but they would, as they jumped through time, the art style would change to reflect like a Steranko or a Bernie Wrightson or a Barry Windsor Smith. And they would bring in all these real world versions of Doc Savage, Godzilla, Tarzan. They even had the Fantastic Four in an issue. And again, for licensing rights, they couldn't just straight up refer to these characters by their names. But I thought that would be perfect TV series, which is every episode, maybe you bring in a different director that has a specific look or feel to it. That each episode, whether it was a 1-story arc or maybe it was a 3-story arc, would have a completely different look and feel to it based on, whether or not they were dealing with Sherlock Holmes or if they were dealing with the Renaissance or a future looking thing. So that was my take. Planetary.
I do like both the artist and the writer. So
yeah, John Cassidy really kills it, and and they got into alternate dimensions and multiverse stuff as well. So that also played into it. So again, probably the licensing rights would be all over the place as far as being able to have a character that looked and acted like Tarzan without referring to him as Tarzan.
See, now I'm going in a different direction because I would like to see them reboot a comic that I think has never gotten its just day. There's been 2 iterations of this out already, and I don't think either of them have come to much at all. Ghost Rider.
Okay.
Terrible. He gave Nick Cage his kudos for Kick-Ass, but I cannot give him any kudos for Ghost Rider. He is completely miscast, too old to play Johnny Blaze. And, I give him props that he probably loves the character as much as I do.
Right.
Still, I don't think I can play Johnny Blaze.
No.
And I don't think Nick Cage should have either. And they basically followed the story, but I don't think they got the true darkness of Ghost Rider that you got from reading those early comics. And the version of Ghost Rider that showed up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was the later day.
Yeah, the 90s Ghost Rider.
I wasn't invested in at all. So I think if they go back to the original Johnny Blaze storyline with like an actor that's age appropriate, that has a dark theme to it with maybe a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, and have the character like bring it to his demonic roots, so you never really know if he's a good guy
or bad guy,
monster.
Yeah, there seems like there could be a whole Marvel untapped universe. I know Blade was pretty groundbreaking when it came out, but like Blade would fall within kind of like that realm of Ghost Rider, even
and all those monsters like Werewolf by Night,
right? Yeah, Morbius, the living vampire, like those guys that kind of live underground and aren't really like spandex wearing superheroes.
Yeah,
they could create like this whole sub universe of Marvel characters.
Yeah. Now, Jim, they actually have a version of Ghost Rider now, which is the Cosmic Ghost Rider, which is Frank Castle,
the Punisher.
Frank Castle, the Punisher, who has been endowed with like cosmic spirit and powers by Galactus, and he roams the galaxy. I don't follow this, but and it's a very popular character now.
Is he a herald of Galactus?
I don't know, actually.
That's interesting. Does he have like a space bike?
He does.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can't have Ghost Rider on the bike.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. All right. Food for thought. There you go.
So next week, we're back into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
This is a long time coming.
Captain Marvel.
I'm going to need to see this like a Thursday night when it comes out.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
I've kept away from the spoilers.
I haven't really, they're really pumping it up as far as promos, but I haven't seen too many variations thereof. I know Entertainment Weekly has an article in this week's, but it doesn't really give anything away.
So with Captain Marvel, we're really taking a leap with this.
This is a big leap.
This was one of our picks for that movie that you love that nobody else has ever heard of. And we're going with Mike's first.
Corvette Summer.
Corvette Summer, yes.
Which is almost impossible to find. I think we finally found it on iTunes.
Yeah, it's on iTunes and it's on Google Play. So I'll watch it on one of those, right?
Neither of which I can get on my television, but I'll be able to watch it on my computer.
Yeah, Google Play I pulled up on my TV. So that's how I'm
Oh, did
watch
you?
it.
I wonder if I can do that.
So why would you pair these up, you may ask, these two features, Captain Marvel, Corvette Summer? Well,
Luke Skywalker.
If you go to our Instagram feed, Jeff is going to come up with a visual, the two posters, the artwork together. You will see there's kind of a correlation there. Captain Marvel with her red, blue, with some yellows going on outfit, and the Corvette from Corvette Summer, same color scheme.
Got the flames.
You've got both starting with C.
So you're saying it's tenuous. It's tenuous at best.
Yeah. And you've got 4 syllables in each title. Corvette Summer, Captain Marvel. We can make it work. We can make it work.
So I was saying before that I don't remember the car being red. I remember it being yellow, but then when I watched the trailer, I realized that the guy who steals it actually spray paints it. So it's more of a gold yellow.
Oh, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler.
So, but I have not seen this movie in years. And this was marked right off from Star Wars, right? They hyped it up.
I don't remember seeing this since it was on like HBO in 78, 79. So it's been a long time.
It has been a while.
All right.
And there's probably a reason for that.
Yeah.
Now, Mike, this was a movie you remember as a kid. I'm trying to remember why we...
we were on a Star Wars conversation, and it was you wanted anything Star Wars. And so Mark Hamill was in this, and I'm like, I'm watching it.
Yeah. Do you remember watching the Big Red one, too? Because he was also in that.
Actually,
Lee Marvin. That was another one I remember seeing, like a newspaper clipping of it. And I was like, oh, I need to watch that. That's Luke Skywalker. Still is Luke Skywalker.
So there you have it. Next week.
That's it. Another episode. We're quickly zooming toward 450.
Yeah.
50, kids.
Yeah. You'll have to tune in to see what we're going to do for that 50th episode. We're going to try to.
I'm going to have to tune in, find out what we're going to do. Another show. Thank you
day.
again for listening.
Yeah, thank you, everybody out there.
Tell your friends, please.
Tell your friends. All right, you guys.
All right, you're out.
Okay, you Let's see what you can do now. Mike Wazowski!